There's a massive update on the UFC class action lawsuit, Lee versus Zuffa, and it's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching, and it might break your soul. So, the major update is that the UFC is now offering $375 million to the plaintiffs, okay? Previously, it was $335 million to the plaintiffs. And let me break down how much the fighters are going to get broken down depending on how many fights and how important they were to the UFC, etc. So, around 35 ex-UFC fighters will get over $1 million each, 100 fighters would get over $500,000 each, 200 fighters would recover over $250,000 each, and 500 fighters would recover over $100,000 each, and finally, 800 fighters would recover $50,000 each. This is a lot of money. There's no question. For a lot of these fighters, it's immense. It's life-changing. I don't blame any of them for wanting to take the settlement. And when you hear some of these stories, you're going to understand that. But I want to make it clear that this is a settlement. The UFC knows that they could lose this case. And if they lose this case, I don't know if it would destroy them, but this could be billions of dollars going to the fighters. And it would overhaul the MMA industry as a whole. But there's a risk that the fighters and the plaintiffs lose, right? There's a risk if you take this all the way to the courts, right? That is exactly why they're trying to play it safe on both ends. And I just want to make that clear. My head wants them to all hold out because it would net them so much more money. And by a lot of money, let me explain. If this goes to court and the jury awards them a win, the amount that the jury awards these fighters could be multiplied by 2.5 times due to it being a class action lawsuit. That is why I said billions, okay? They are taking a risk of getting obscenely huge payouts here. But again, I understand it. And so much more change for the industry and save so many fighters and fighters to come in the industry that we desperately need. I don't blame any one of them for wanting the money now and taking it after you hear this. So here we go. From former UFC interim heavyweight champion Shane Carwin, despite having a degree in engineering from the Colorado School of Mines, I have been unable to maintain an adequate focus to hold down an engineering job. I face serious challenges in meeting basic everyday expenses for food, shelter, and transportation, and in basic life skills necessary to function. These funds would also allow me to obtain the healthcare I need and to keep a roof over my head and food on my table. The sad reality is that the funds years from now may be of no use to me. I desperately need these funds now. From former UFC fighter John Howard, last year my daughter was the victim of gun violence. That will require substantial long-term care for her survival and well-being. My family needs the funds from this settlement desperately to care for our daughter and to assist in day-to-day living expenses. From former fighter Jorge Rivera, I do not have health insurance and have not been receiving the necessary care to maintain my health due to the expenses of healthcare, which I cannot afford. One of the few fighters not necessarily calling for the settlement and constant fighter advocate, former fighter Nate Quarry, stated, "Without medical insurance provided by the state of Oregon, I would be unable to afford my significant medical expenses. I understand that many class members whose MMA careers likewise took a toll on their bodies lack medical insurance." I do not know Nate Quarry. I have not reached out for comment, but this reflects a common feeling among fighters who want to wait, is that they both understand the need for many fighters because this court case to resolve will take many years. And it's sobering to see him say something like this because I believe that in all likelihood he wants to wait, not just for himself, but because he knows the change that could come. But he also understands the situation that so many of these fighters are in and how desperate they are. From UFC legend Wanderlei Silva, while fighting for the UFC, I suffered many significant injuries, including concussions. I fear that during my career, I have suffered traumatic brain injury, and I am noticing symptoms common with TBI and CTE, including depression, mood swings, and irritability. To date, no treatment for CTE has been found. I suffer from sleep apnea and have difficulty sleeping and breathing. That I can recall, I have had 4 surgeries on my nose, 1 on my face, 2 on my left knee, 1 on my right knee, and 1 on my elbow. This would be truly life-changing money for me and for the members of this class. There's 40 or so something more of these declarations, okay? And they all seem a bit similar, but are largely probably accurate. It feels like maybe lawyers gave them a bit of a script or helped them put these together, But the commonality is that these fighters are struggling, and it's why the lawsuit was made in the beginning. That's why they started it, is because so many fighters are reeling from awful traumatic injuries, lack of health care, lack of income. Some are going homeless. It's terrible. And that's why I want to share this, because I want people to realize this isn't just some frivolous lawsuit trying to do nothing, be nothing, whatever, that you don't care about and you don't think about 6 months, 6 years, whatever. This is terrible. The UFC is in a lawsuit and trying to pay out less than what these people probably deserve, but they're paying enough for them to shut up and go away. Potentially, if you will. Now, I don't know what's going to come from this. I got all of this from John Nash, also known as Hey Not the Face on Twitter. Amazing journalist. Please go follow him. Updates are going to fall pretty shortly, I imagine, on this in the near future. But yeah, I wanted to give a look at what's going on and let me know what you think. What do you think the fighters should do? It's heartbreaking.